Okay, what I'd like to study with you today is a small section of Gemara that is extremely fanciful and cryptic in describing one of the elements that the Torah says should be used in the construction of the Mishkan, which we're going to read about this Shabbos in Parsha Terumah. Chodesh Tov, by the way, everybody. Rosh Chodesh Adar Rishon is the time of great Simcha. Mishenichnas Adar Marbim B'Simcha. So let's learn something that hopefully will inspire us and make us and fill us with that Simcha. We've talked about before the Atzei Shittim. We talked about in a previous year how the Jews got acacia wood and where this wood came from, Shittim wood, where it came from. But today, the other ingredient that I'd like to focus on is orot techashim, tachash hides from the tachash animal. Now, the tachash is an animal that we don't know today. It seems to be extinct. And the Gemara comments on this because the tachash animal was already extinct in the times of the Gemara, to the point where the Gemara didn't really know what the tachash animal was. It must have existed in biblical times, and it was by the time the Talmud came along, it was already extinct. So the Gemara has to search for what kind of skin is the tachash animal. And so the Gemara in Maseches Shabbos, page 28, states as follows: Gufa boi Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar asked the question, or everyone see it in source number 2. Or behemat timeya mahu sheyitamei tumat oholin. The question is, it's a very technical halachic question. If you have the hide of a non-kosher type of animal, is that called an ohel? Is it called a tent? Where the Torah says that there are halachas of tumah that apply to anything that's within that tent. Well, what is a tent? What kind of fabric must the tent be made out of? The Gemara discusses a tent made out of linen is a tent. What about a tent made out of kosher hides? That's a tent. Now the Gemara's question is, what about a tent made from a non-kosher animal's hide? So, Maiko mi bayale, why does Rebbe Lazar have this question? Amar Rava Ada bar Ahava tacha shahaya bimei Moshe kami bayale, tamei haya o tahor haya. The question that he's asking is because we know that the Torah calls the Mishkan an ohel, calls it a tent. And if so, the skin that covers that tent must be a legal tent for other halachic purposes. And the question is, one of the skins that covered the ohel was the tachash skin. Is the tachash a kosher species of animal or is it non-kosher? And so the Gemara says, Omer Rav Yosef maiti boile. What kind of question is that? It must have been a kosher animal because Tanina lo huchshuru lemelechet shamayim ela or behemat tahora bilvad. Because we have a Mishnaic teaching which tells us that any time God calls upon us to do a mitzvah with an animal product, it must be from a kosher animal. And the Torah would never tell us to build a mishkan from a non-kosher animal. The Gemara then goes on to a much longer discussion, because Mativ Rabbi Abba challenges that contention that every single mitzvah that involves animal skin must be from a kosher animal. It says, Rabbi Nechemya Omer, because Rabbi Nechemya is quoted in the Mishnaic teaching as follows: Michse echad haya v'domeh kimin tala ilan. There was only one kind of covering to the Mishkan, and it looked like leopard skin. Tala ilan is a type of leopard or a other type of spotted animal. And v'ha tala ilan tamehu. That animal, whatever it is, a leopard or a panther or a jaguar, whatever that animal skin is a non-kosher animal. The Gemara says that's not a problem because hachi kamar kimin tala ilan hu sheyesh bo givanin harbe v'lo tala ilan di'ilu hatam tamei v'hachat tahor. No, you misunderstood that Mishnaic teaching. It doesn't mean that it actually had leopard skin on it. It looked like leopard skin because it had many different kinds of spots and colors on it. And that's what the tachash skin was. It was a multicolored type of animal hide that when you looked at it, it had many, many different kinds of colors and designs and spots.
Excuse me. So this
Yes.
is covering the Mishkan?
This is a covering for the Mishkan. The Torah says that the Mishkan shall be covered with animal hide instead of a formal roof.
And then that high is considered a tent.
That's considered a tent. That's why the Torah calls the Mishkan Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting. Okay, so the Gemara now says, Amar Rav Yosef, Ihachi hainu de mitargeminan sasgona shesas bigavanin harbe. Now I understand why Targum Onkelos calls the tachash animal in Aramaic the sasgona or the sasgavna, because the word sasgavna is a contraction of two words, sas and gavna. Sas is to rejoice, and gavna is multicolored, or multiple colors. And therefore, the tachash is an animal that rejoices in its multiple colors. So what we know for now is that, number one, the tachash, we don't know what kind of animal it is, but the Gemara suggests that it must be a kosher animal. The Gemara, by the way, later rejects that. And it demonstrates that it's possible for the Mishkan to be made from a non-kosher animal. Why then is there a Mishnaic teaching that says that any mitzvah has to be from a kosher animal? That's not referring to all mitzvot, it's referring specifically to tefillin. So tefillin has to be made from a kosher animal skin. Leather has to be made from either goat skin or cowhide, but it cannot be made from a non-kosher animal skin. But it's possible, perhaps it's possible, that the tachash is still a non-kosher animal. So the Gemara then has to go into other proofs to determine whether or not the tachash is a kosher species. And the Gemara continues. I'm skipping a lot of lines in the Gemara. Mai havi ala de tachash shahaya bimei Moshe. So what's the final upshot as to whether this animal is a kosher species or not? Amar Rebbe Ilah, Amar Rebbe Shimon ben Lakish, Omer haya Rebbe Meir, Tachash shahaya bimei Moshe b'riyah bifnei atzma haya. It was, according to Rebbe Meir, it was a unique creature that only existed in the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. V'lo hichriu b'chachamim min chayahu min behemahu. And the chachamim could not determine whether it was a behema or a chaya. You know what the difference between a behema and a chaya is? A behema is a farm animal, domesticated, like a goat, a sheep, a cow. And a chaya is a non-domesticated animal, what we call venison, right? Deer, wild mountain goats, and so forth, that are not domesticated or raised on a farm. The rabbis weren't sure whether the tachash was a domesticated farm animal or whether it was an animal of the wild. And that was one of the things they didn't know. The keren echat haitalo b'mitzcho, and it was a unicorn. It had one horn coming out of the middle of its head. Ulefi sha'a nizdamein lo leMoshe, and it was only made available to Moshe during that generation when we needed it to build the Mishkan. Meaning that according to this midrash, it did not exist before Moshe, and it did not exist after Moshe. It was only made available so that Moshe could use this animal's hide in order to build the Mishkan, and it was a unicorn. Ve'asa mimenu Mishkan v'nignaz. And Moshe made a Mishkan out of it, and then eventually this hide was hidden away. And the Gemara wants to argue, Midika keren echat hayitalo b'mitzcho shma mina tahor haya. The very fact that it was a unicorn indicates that it must have been a kosher animal. Why? The Amar of Yehuda, Shor shehikriv Adam harishon keren echat hayitalo b'mitzcho shenemar batitav lashem yishor pri makrin mafris. Because we know that the original ox that Adam offered as a sacrifice to God, the original large animal that Adam offered to Hashem, was a unicorn, based on the understanding of the word makrin in the pasuk, which means that it has one horn. So the conclusion of the Gemara is that if indeed the tachash was a unicorn, then it must be a kosher animal. And that's the conclusion of the Gemara, that yes, the tachash was a kosher species of animal. Now, you and I, when we think of a unicorn, we think of I was just visiting with my granddaughter, and she had a unicorn with a rainbow-colored tail. It looks like a horse with a horn on. But the Gemara says no. The unicorn is really like a beast of burden, like a cow or a bull, and it has a single horn coming out the center of its head, almost like a rhino, but a kosher rhino. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the conclusion of our discussion for today, as far as what we wanted to extract from the Gemara. This is such a fanciful Gemara, and when I say fanciful, what do I mean? There's a lot of imagery here, and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason behind the Gemara's discussion. We know that it's a multicolored, spotted animal that's like, when you look at it, it has a bunch of different colors that jump out at you, different spots, designs perhaps. We know that it has a single horn coming out of its head. And we know that the Gemara deliberates whether it's a kosher species or a non-kosher species, and it also deliberates whether it's a behema or a chaya, and we can't come up with a resolution. It's whether it's a domesticated or farm animal or an animal of the wild. Now, all of this is discussed by Rav Kook in his commentary to the Gemara. And he wrote a fascinating commentary to the Gemara called Ein Ayah, on two tractates in the Talmud, Masechet Brachot and Masechet Shabbat. It's unfortunate that he didn't, I don't know if other commentary exists on other portions of the Gemara, but this is all that we have of what he wrote in his Gemara commentary, where he specifically discusses much of the Agadic material that is found in the Gemara and finds tremendous purpose. I just want to share with you a piece of his, and we'll try to get as far as we can with it because it goes on for several pages, but I extracted for you just a couple of pages of it. So, take a look in the Ein Ayah, Ot Ayin Chet, and we'll just get started. Mai havi ala detacha shahaya bimei Moshe. So the Gemara now asks the question, well, what's the upshot? What's the final understanding of as whether this animal is a kosher or non-kosher species? So he explains as follows: Hatuma v'hatara miyucheset l'tov u'l'ra b'mitziut. Pure and impure species of animals are associated with good and evil, the good and the bad that exists within all of reality. In other words, when we say that an animal is kosher or an animal is non-kosher, what we're essentially saying is that there's an association of kosher being good and non-kosher being bad. Omnam, hem inyanim shebaim yoter lefi hayachas. But it's all relative, these terms of good and bad, pure and impure. Ki bichlal halo neda ki kol poal Hashem lema'anehu. Ve'en b'mitziut ra muchlat. This is because the reality is that if God created something, it must be good. When God created all of creation, He saw that everything was good in creation. So how can you tell me that something is impure, that something is not good? Even a pig has to be good in some sense, otherwise Hashem would not have created it, right? So in the larger picture of all of creation, everything that Hashem created in the world, it serves a purpose and is something good, right? So when we say good and evil, these are relative terms. Okay. Mikol makom, yesod hamusar v'hayirah hu lahavchin ben tov l'ra. But the truth is, the whole foundation of refinement of character, refinement of one's personality, is to be able to make a proper distinction between good and evil. Uchemochen yesod hamada hu lahakir gam kein shegam hara hayoter garua eino nifrad la'atzmo me'en kol yachas el hatov haklali. What he calls mada, he says the foundation of character development, of ethics, is to properly distinguish between good and evil. But the proper attitude in philosophy or science, what we would translate mada, is to appreciate that every component of the world is part of a larger whole, and everything serves a purpose. Even the most undesirable component serves a purpose. You know, someone told me recently, I was sitting down with someone, and they told me they were on a safari. And when they were on this safari, they saw the perfect ecosystem. Because when you go through the wild, you don't find piles of animal dung and big piles of garbage. Because in a perfect ecosystem, everything gets consumed and used by another part of that ecosystem. So you're looking at a pristine thing, right? So a giraffe gets killed by a lion. The lion eats whatever it wants of the meat. And then the next predatory creature comes along, and they eat whatever the lion didn't eat. And then the jackals or the hyenas come, and then they eat the bones, right? So eventually, and then all of the excrement from these animals is taken away by the dung beetles, and they roll it up and make it into piles to fertilize the soil. And all of these things, in other words, this really the circle of life, there's a perfect ecosystem, so even excrement serves a purpose. So when you're looking at things from a philosophical perspective, everything is good, even that which we would normally say is an undesirable. But when it comes to ethics, we have to learn how to distinguish between good and bad, light and dark, hamavdil ben kodesh l'chol, right? So there's a dichotomy in the way that we look at the world. On the one hand, we look at the world as divided between good and bad. And on the other hand, says Rav Kook, we have to look at the world in a more holistic sense, that everything is good and serves a purpose. Right? So you're with me? So you're with us so far? This is really the way that he's sort of outlining this. Okay. Omnam hamitzvot mechuvanot hina biyoter lahagdil et hakarat derech hachayim v'hatov bilibo shel adam. Why did God give us mitzvot? He did it to refine us, to make us better human beings. Shelazet tzarich shiakir ma'od et hasina v'haboz lahara v'hefsed hatzedek v'hamusar. In order to become a refined human being, we have to be able to make distinctions in life between good and evil, between that which is desirable and that which is undesirable. Because we can't say that everything serves a purpose, even evil. Because if we take too much of a panoramic view of the totality of existence, then nothing is bad. And we live in a judgment-free, morally relativistic world where everything is okay, because it's all part of the totality of the human condition. And that's not okay. That's not why God gave us mitzvot. God gave us mitzvot specifically because he wanted to have a system whereby we make distinctions between good and evil. And that we are able to discern between that which is right and that which is wrong. There is no moral relativism within Judaism. That's the whole idea of a Torah. Mibilti shetipagem sinat hara b'chol shu mipnei hatzarach haklali sheyesh lametziut haklalit b'metziut hara. And God doesn't want our recognition of the distinction between right and wrong to be compromised in any way by our acceptance of the grander panoramic picture of everything serves a purpose. Ki im yedal lenachon ki davar ze shel mitziut hara bichlal hamitziut letachlit hatov inyan amiti madai, aval ligvul hamusar hamaasi lo yigash. While it may be true that everything in existence serves a purpose, even bad things, but that's not the way God wants us to approach our lives as ethical beings. Because if we view everything as acceptable and okay, then we no longer have the ability to refine ourselves as human beings. There has to be a moral code by which we say this is okay and this is not okay. We can't say everything is okay. We can't say it's just the circle of life. And just, and by the way, this is fascinating, right? Because this is the struggle of today's society, right? In society today, in the 21st century, mankind is more prone to saying that we look at the whole world with a panoramic view that everything is okay. No one has a right to judge. No one has a right to declare one society or one political system or one way of living better than the other. Yeah, you know what? That's not the Torah. The Torah says you do. I gave you a Torah to say you should know what is right and what is wrong. There is an absolute right and wrong. So while it's true, says Rav Kook, that the world today has the correct view, but that's not going to help us become refined human beings, ethical human beings, if we say that everything is acceptable and okay. If you become too tolerant, then you lose your sense of refinement. And you no longer have a Torah. You're no longer a part of this covenant that was meant to refine us as human beings. So it's a very, very interesting philosophical idea that he's getting to over here. And I want to skip a little bit because otherwise we're not going to have time. I want you to skip down to where it says Omnam. It's about 2/3 of the way down. He says, normally we can't afford to be so tolerant as to say that everything is okay. But that's in a normal worldview in most generations. Omnam lo chen haya erech dor hamidbar. But the Jews who left Egypt and lived with Hashem in the desert for those 40 years were different. Shehu haya dor shekipel et hatzamsit shel dorot habayim kulam. Because included within that generation was sort of a concentration of all future generations of Jews. Sharei al pi kritut brit torat chayim la'ad u'olmei olamim shekartu alei zevach dor de'ahahu mipihem anu chayim v'yichyu gam kein hadorot ha'atidim lichyot. That he says that based on the fact that this is the generation that stood at Mount Sinai and received the Torah, they received it not just for themselves, but for all future generations. So there is, in a sense, some aspect of all future generations contained within that generation that is building the Mishkan. Matala shel Torah, shegam kol hatov ha'atid lavo ba'olam la'olam, shekulo tov shaz yehafecha kol letov, v'kol ha'kochot harim yehavchu, v'yitztarafu lif'ol b'f'ulatam ha'azav ha'kasha letov l'mishpat v'tzedek, l'chesed v'emet v'da'at Elokim. So he says, part of this generation includes the ability to understand what's going to be in the Messianic age. What's going to happen in the Messianic age? Everything will be converted to good. Even the things that we perceive as bad today, hayinu kechol mim, everything will be transformed to the good. So that in some sense, the generation that is building the Mishkan have the capacity to be able to appreciate where even something that is normally bad can also be used for the good. And, concludes Rav Kook, and we're not going to go through the entire rest of this paragraph, we can therefore understand why the Gemara deliberates as to whether the tachash animal is a kosher or non-kosher animal. In other words, was there a component of the Mishkan that included something non-kosher because the Jewish people at the time were able to process the idea that even a pigskin has holiness and greatness. Even a non-kosher animal's skin can be used in the service of Hashem. Something that normally we don't have an appreciation for because we are called upon to say pigs are not kosher and we can't have anything to do with them. But if you're part of a messianic worldview, which is what the Jews of this generation were, then perhaps you can appreciate how even a non-kosher animal can be used properly in the service of Hashem, so that because you're looking at the totality of existence as everything is good. Okay? That, he says, is the deeper meaning behind the question. Was the tachash animal a kosher animal or a non-kosher animal? And that's just part one. And that's why I'm skipping the rest of the text. Let's go to the next paragraph. Ayin Tet. Okay, second column, 2/3 of the way down. Amar Rabbi Ilah, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Omer haya Rabbi Meir, Tachash shehaya bimei Moshe, B'riya b'fnei atzma haya. He quotes the Gemara as saying that the tachash that existed in the Bible was unique and only lived during the times of Moshe Rabbeinu. It never lived before that generation and never lived afterwards. Yes, so he explains as follows, using the same kind of mahalech, using the same kind of approach, that what Chazal are trying to refer to is a deeper philosophical meaning to the ingredients that were put into the construction of the Mishkan. Yeshnan midot kevuot, sheru'uyot hein lihiyot nikvaot beroshem shel kviyut v'shel tolada kiyumit. There are certain attributes, certain traits, behavioral traits, and behavioral concepts that deserve to be eternal. There are absolutes, kindness, charity, ideas like benevolence. These are absolutes that deserve to exist for all perpetuity for as long as mankind is alive. Dahainu shemishorshan yukchu anafim gam kein laharchiv inyanan b'chol eit vador. Because they are of such absolutely good quality that they deserve to be proliferated into every generation. V'yeshnan midot ka'ela shein tzrichot l'sha'atan ve'en likvoa atan be'erech mini kol echad ki'im be'erech ishi. But there are other types of traits that must be used more sparingly, that are not absolutely good, but are only appropriate for a certain time and a certain place. Ki hamin halohu kavua ve'inenu over mitrabeh ve'eno omed b'tzimtzumo. Because something which is a unique species does not proliferate and evolve into a different species. It remains unique and remains in stasis. V'hinei haroshim shel riboy hagivanim shebetachash demitargeminan sas gavna. So now let's talk about this tachash animal. It was unique for its generation, but also we know that it was of many colors. It was a very, very multicolored animal. I just thought about the horse in The Wizard of Oz for some reason. But that's what I just thought of. It was a horse of many colors, right? Shesas begavanin harbe, hu mat'im imotah hanitiyah shel hachnasat kol hakochot. So this is a representative of taking all of different human character traits and taking a mosaic of all different kinds of traits that human beings possess and combining them into one mosaic. Gam otam shehem la'atzmam ra'im b'vinyan ha'umah ha'klalit. And even taking traits that we normally associate with bad and incorporating them in the construction of a national character, so that the Jewish people are a mosaic of different kinds of personalities, of different strengths and different weaknesses. And that's what the tachash animal represents, sas gavna. It rejoices in its multifaceted experience of different kinds of traits. V'zehu davar miyuchas l'Moshe Rabbeinu, alav hashalom, shehichnis et ha'erev rav bichlal ha'umah. And this is something that's unique to Moshe Rabbeinu, because what did Moshe Rabbeinu do? And he's, by the way, he's criticized for this, but Rav Kook says he doesn't deserve to be criticized. Moshe Rabbeinu accepted a group of people known as the Erev Rav. Who can tell me who the Erev Rav were? Yes?
The people that left Mitzrayim.
People, Egyptians who left Mitzrayim.
Yes, with the Bnei Israel.
With Bnei Israel. And Moshe allowed them to come and join. And we all know that we all had tsaros from the Erev Rav, right? According to Chazal, the Erev Rav were the ones who fomented for the golden calf. They're the ones who fomented for the spies. They're the ones who fomented with Korach. So anytime we experienced a rebellion, there's a rabbinic tradition that the Erev Rav were always at the forefront of that rebellion or that insurrection. Ve'af al pi shelo haya hadavar al pi hadibor k'mefursam b'divrei Chazal, mikol makom vaday lo yu'uneh latzadik kol aven. Now, even though God did not tell Moshe explicitly to allow the Erev Rav to join the Jewish people, one thing we know, that a tzaddik will not do anything that is ultimately bad. And a tzaddik on Moshe Rabbeinu's level certainly was not capable of doing something that would be so monumentally a blunder. V'imach ovim rabim heisebu ha'erev rav b'Yisrael. And granted, we suffered a lot because of the Erev Rav. V'toldotehem kayotze bahem mesavavim tzarot rabot v'raot b'chol dor vador. And according to the Kabbalah, even to this day, there's a little bit of Erev Rav anytime you see machlokas in Klal Yisrael. Anytime you see bad behavior within the Jewish people, it means that a little bit of the Erev Rav has trickled down to our generation. So, like, people joke, Bernie Madoff, oh, he's part of the Erev Rav. But it's not a joke. In other words, the point is that on a Kabbalistic level, if a Jew acts with disgrace, it is because he or she has inherited a portion of the Erev Rav into their genetic bloodstream. That's the way we view it. Is the Erev Rav represents the introduction of a bad element, a bad seed within the Jewish people. Okay? Yes.
But they came willingly. Nobody told them to come.
I know, but Moshe had the option of rejecting them, right? The question is, why did he accept them? So Moshe Rabbeinu's attitude was like the tachash animal skin. In the formation of our people, we need to have a multicolored mosaic of all different kinds of personalities, even the unsavory ones. And that's what the tachash skin represents, says Rav Kook. Okay, mikol makom ha'hashlama ha'klalit shetavo bi'acharit hayamim titbarech gam ken al yedei otam ha'kochot ha'kashim v'hashonim. He says that at the end of days, it will be demonstrated how even those bad seeds that existed in every generation within the Jewish people served a constructive purpose. We'll be able to understand why the golden calf was necessary, why a guy like Korach was necessary, and all of the different iterations of bad Jews in every generation, why they needed to be introduced into the annals of Jewish history. What?
They were a challenge to us.
They were a challenge to us, but at the end of days, in the Messianic age, everything will be revealed as having served a productive purpose. Shedavka al yedei mizugam shel ha'erev rav ba'ulan. That everything that needed to happen to the Jewish people in our long galus happened, even though they were sad iterations of our history, but they were necessary, and they were introduced to us by these Erev Rav kinds of people. Uvehefech hachoshech lo'or yigaleh hadavar shegam oto hara v'hasevel haya letova. So at the end of days, it'll be demonstrated to us. We'll be able to understand how all of the bad that we had to undergo was really all for the good. And, okay, ki ha'osher shel hamon kochot v'tzivyonim shonim hu davar mashlim et ha'umah. Because ultimately, the multifaceted nature of our people is what makes us a comprehensive people. It's what makes us a complete people.
Holy.
Well, holy, but complete is what his point is, shleimut. The idea is that we needed all different kinds of kachlefels within Klal Yisrael. Right? We needed them. We needed all of these kinds of nudniks to make us a complete people. Even though at the time, this person is such an annoying nudnik, I wish he would just go away. But when Mashiach comes, it'll be revealed to me how this nudnik was the necessary cog in the wheel to bring the Messianic age. And that's what the Erev Rav it represents. Givanim harbe, all different kinds of personalities needed to be introduced within Klal Yisrael at the time of the generation of the desert. Elamipnei shenil kechumi makom bilti tahor hinam lekotzim kol zman shelo nitzrefu. When something is taken from an impure source, it presents itself as being a thorn in our side until it is refined. Beautiful language. Omnam rak yimei Moshe otam hayamim shahuma kafla behem et hachanat hashlamata ad hayom ha'acharon ad ha'atid hayoter nedar. He says, but it's the generation, once again, like we said, by the tachash animal, is it pure or impure? In the generation of the desert, where they represent all future, the entirety of the future of the Jewish people. And they have this perspective of seeing what's going to be in the Messianic age. Rak heim hayu ru'uyim lihikanes ba'ovei korak veda kazot shel harbot hagvanim biribui hayoter efshari v'lasus bahem. The Jews of that generation were able to celebrate, not just appreciate, the multifaceted nature of our people, but to also celebrate it. You can celebrate the nudniks within Klal Yisrael. You can celebrate the Erev Rav if you have a global perspective, like we've been talking about before, about how every component of our people contributes to the final end of days, contributes to that messianic perfection. I can appreciate how even the bad, the uncolorful, the dark, the ugly contributes. And the tachash skin contained all of this, contained the beauty, contained the ugly, contained the light, contained the dark. The tachash skin represents all of this multifaceted aspect of the Jewish people. V'lichol gam koach ze bichlal avodat hakodesh shenichlala b'kedushat hamishkan. And this all contributes to the holiness of the Mishkan. Aval ein ladavar erech mini kiyumi b'chalila ledorot hapratiyim lasum lahem lakav laharbot givanim zarim bu'uma. But he says, but that doesn't work in every generation. The tachash animal only exists in one generation, the generation of Moshe. And that's what our sages are alluding to when they say that it was unique to Moshe's generation. In all future generations, we can't be that tolerant to be so multifaceted and to say there's room at the table for everyone, from the greatest chacham to the greatest rasha. At some point, we have to be mak'ed shinav, like we say in the Haggadah. We have to blunt the teeth of the wicked son. We can't be so accepting of everything and so tolerant, once again, so that everything works. That's why the tachash animal was unique to that generation. The same idea as to what Rav Kook was referring to before. It may have been a non-kosher animal, but that was okay for that generation. In all future generations, it has to be a kosher animal, and there's no room necessarily for so much latitude within the national character of our people. At some point, we have to excise the bad from our people. And that wasn't, the Erev Rav has to be excised. But in the times of Moshe, there was an appreciation that even the Erev Rav served a functional, productive purpose.
Is the Erev Rav took out the bed from every Jew? That was the
Well, that's the point, is that the idea that Chazal make reference to is that the Erev Rav intermingled with us, so that even today there are some descendants of the Erev Rav within Klal Yisrael. So when a person acts despicably and he's a Jew, the way we explain it, because all Jews are holy, so how could this person act so despicably? The answer is it's part of the Erev Rav. Right? That's the way that we make peace with it.
So why did they want to come if they wanted to make trouble?
Oh, because even a terrible person has moments of inspiration, but they were only fleeting moments of inspiration, right? And they left as quickly as they came.
I think God sent them to be with us.
It could be. That's what.
With them we elevate ourselves.
Yes, that's what Rav Kook is saying. Exactly.
Yeah.
V'lichol gam koach ze bichlal avodat hakodesh, right? Aval ein ladvar erech mini kiyumi, right? Oli hidavek bioter gam boto hasig hazar shenivla be'ivareha. We therefore, in future generations, we cannot, beautiful language, we cannot attach ourselves excessively to the dross, this foreign dross that is absorbed within our limbs. Asher benet acharei shimush pu'ulatam takanat haklal tuluya behazikuk shel hasarat habedilim. He says, because ultimately, part of the purpose of living in the diaspora is to purify ourselves from all of the dross that has gotten mixed in with the Jewish people. Ve'etzrov kabor sigayich ve'asira kol bedilayich acharechein yikare lach ir hatzedek kirya ne'emana. I'm quoting a pasuk in Isaiah, that the whole purpose of the Churban and the diaspora becoming scattered in the exile is to purify us and to us to refine ourselves and remove all of the dross. Al kein tachash shehaya bimei Moshe bria bifnei atzma haya. And that's why the tachash animal in the times of Moshe was a unique creature for that time. In Moshe's time, he could recognize the greatness of diversity and even multiculturalism. But, we're living this. We're living this today. Because how do you respond to those who say that multiculturalism reigns supreme as the ultimate value within Western society, within Canada? How do you respond to that? Does that mean that ultimately there is no right or wrong? Does that mean that ultimately I have no right to judge whether a person is, how a faith community treats its members, how people speak to each other? how people behave in their families? Of course. We have to. The mitzvot that Hashem gave to us are there to govern our division between good and evil, what we perceive. Ultimately, there is multiculturalism and there's beauty in everything. But that's not for now. For now, we have to continue living our lives, a disciplined life that is governed by a recognition of good and evil, that excises the Erev Rav and doesn't allow for a full panorama of all different kinds of colors and a mosaic of everything at the table. A limited mosaic is a beautiful thing, but when you get too many colors, then it just becomes a hodgepodge of chaos. And that's essentially what Rav Kook is saying is really what the Tachash animal was all about. It was beautiful to look at if you were living in that generation because you could see the future. And you could see how all of this hodgepodge could be made into something unitary and holy. But for now, that we don't have that capacity. Any comments, questions, discussion? No? Okay. If not, we'll hold.